So just going to give you a little bit of introduction in terms of this today. We are slightly, it's a slightly different way of approach that we're doing these masterclasses today. Than you maybe normally go into a business gateway style workshop and see how we do it, maybe a 2-hour workshop, etc. Today, what we're planning to do, hi Marlon, how are you doing? Today, as we've done for the last 2 or 3 this week, there's a 15-minute discussion by me. You'll just have to listen to me for 15 minutes roughly. And then after that, we're pretty much open mic, let's call it. Now, depending on how many people end up joining, we might only use the chat functionality. In a standard screen, it's up the top right-hand corner. There's a little chat function. I'm just going to say hello. And if you've got any questions at all, anything you want to add, anything you want to say, please just fire into the chat. Probably just from a bit of background noise, if you can mute yourself, that'd be good. You're very welcome to keep all your cameras on, so I'm very happy to catch up with you that way. But at the end of the day, if you do have a question, just open your mic up and speak as well. So I'll go in 30 seconds. We're still quite light in numbers where we thought we would be, but I'm just going to make a start anyway. So my name's Colin McNally. My background was 12 years at a PLC. And for the last 14 years, we've been supporting small businesses, larger businesses through financial management consultancy, through strategic consultancy, and the development of growth and exit in their business. I am an accountant for my sins. That's where my background is. So this isn't an HR style conversation. This is more about the strategic direction of the business in terms of how it will go in the future. So I'm going to basically just kind of put you down in the little corner. Hopefully you should all be able to see the slide in front of you. If you've got any issues at all, if you can't hear me or anything, just quite simply put it on the chat and then I will pick it up that way. I will stop every slide or so. There is not that many slides. Check the chat just in case there is something coming in. And lastly, please just stick onto the chat who you are, what your business is, where you're based, and basically how we might be able to help you if you've got any specifics. So I'm going to take you through a little feel here in terms of succession planning. I'm not doing it necessarily in order. It's going to come into slides in a minute or two. But what are we doing regarding succession planning? First thing you're doing is truly identifying those critical roles. And then you must be asking yourself, well, actually, what does it actually look like? What does success look like here? What does the profile of success to me look like? Now, from that, it could be absolutely everything. It could be from an actual exit to a buyer and you never want to see the business again. It could be to pass on to the next generation. And again, you could end up in a situation where you're wanting to mentor that person. Or it could be you still want a share in the business and you want to basically continue that to go forward and have some form of say, or 100 other options. You need to look at staffing, create some form of development plan, develop those successors, and get those successors ready. Because even though you may have your eye on who that successor is going to be, are they actually the right person for the job? And that can be a very tough one, especially in families. It won't be the first time where possibly the owner, and say the owner's son, the owner's son expects to take on the mantle going forward, and possibly the owner maybe doesn't think they're up to the skill set. And then literally you will continuously review and adapt until you've fulfilled whatever your succession planning goal is. As I say, my name's Colin McNally. In my day job, I am managing director of a couple of firms, basically CGM Consultancy and also Paris McNally Limited, which is an accountancy firm. So it's about 45 minutes after this to ask questions and hopefully get answers. As you can see, this is an event that is fully across Scotland, across all enterprise zones, Skills Development Scotland, Business Gateway, and obviously Digital Boost as well. And it is sponsored by the British Business Bank. At some point in the near future, you will be getting a survey out for the webinar. If you can do that little favour for us, just spend 30 seconds, a minute filling it in. Genuinely is appreciated. One, in terms of thinking of content for next year, in terms of what we could include, direction of travel in terms of what other courses we could deliver, and generally just feedback in terms of how it went for you. So what we're going to look at, we're going to look at succession planning, mainly in a family business. Really how to best pass that business on to the next generation. It's probably one of the biggest challenges you're going to face as a business owner. Because although the obvious thing is just pass it on to the next generation, but it needs to be the right decision for you, your family, and the business itself. And that decision for you could be quite wide-ranging. It could be freedom, it could be financial. But at the same time, you know, passing a business over to a relative in any form can be stressful. It can cause issues in the future. And also, I hate saying, if you've built up this baby for years to basically become what you want it to be, and suddenly you're passing it on to somebody else, and you see it not going the way you planned in the future, that again creates conflict. So, you know, you need to think this through. It's not an easy option to turn around and sell, pass on, exit a business. So anywhere in the years running up to basically that point, you need to start thinking about it. The sooner you think about it, the better, because the more planning and the more success it will be. So therefore, you know, if you're at either that age or the business's time, or you feel as though it's time to move on generally in life, then, you know, don't try and just rush into this. There are numerous issues you're going to have to face. And whatever ideas you may have, they may not be the final version. So the first thing you need to do is, what actually does success look like? What are your key goals and aims for this? You know, is it to sell it for the most amount of money you can? Is it, as we've dealt with many organisations and businesses that actually, yeah, they want to get some money for it, but truthfully, what they want to do is make sure that the legacy is there for the future. Start looking at that timetable for transition. Now, remember, I'm not talking weeks, I'm talking months and years from actually identifying a successor to full transfer of responsibilities. You know, because that individual or individuals that you're going to pass this over to may be excellent in whatever role they're doing for you at the moment, or maybe outside the company and doing a role somewhere else, but have they all the skills that actually allows them to do what you do? Now, you have to sometimes realise that that's a tough decision as well, because truthfully, they're not going to run the business the same as you. They are going to make changes. They're going to basically bring in modern techniques and modern thoughts, modern technology, where maybe you didn't want to do that. So you are going to have to be prepared that things are going to change. And therefore, it's not just about putting a timetable for you or your employees or your successors, but it's putting a timetable out to actually make sure you and your head is in the right place for this to take place. And also have some form of contingency plan, because sometimes your intended successor declines the role. I mean, we had a business that we were working with not that long ago. The thought was that it would be passed on to a member of the family that was in the business. That decision was actually not going to happen after discussions. The second option was there was a head supervisor, let's call him, in the business. The expectation that they would be very interested in taking it on, but unfortunately, when they looked at the financial situation of their side, they just could not reach the point of basically being able to buy the business no matter what deal was put on the table. And now it's out there, it's out for sale. So, you know, don't assume that your plan will always stay the course that you were hoping it was on. So, you know, does my intended successor have the right skills and abilities? Start asking these questions. And, you know, it may be that your son or daughter is there and you think, yeah, they obviously want to take over. Have you ever asked them? You know, maybe they're thinking, actually, with dad, mum moving out of the business, then actually, it's a great opportunity for me to go and do something different. I mean, we were talking to a young lad not that long ago who, yep, he's only been actually in the business for 2 or 3 months, loves it, very interested. That's what his father is saying as well. So, yep, both are on the same page. But when I went to have a conversation with him, he's only about 23, maybe. I'm trying to struggle, maybe 24, just out of university. When I actually turned around and said, he says, no, this is, at the moment, this is me just enjoying a bit of life, doing something different, seeing where it'll take me. But, you know, I've still got a plan to go and do something in my chosen career field, not in the family business. Now, the other thing you're going to come across is it fair? Now, I'm not saying fair is a word that's used enough in business, but it's not really fair in terms of family. You know, if you've got one member of the family in the business and it's them that's going to inherit the lot, you're going to be passed down to them. What do their brothers and sisters think? What do other relatives think that maybe helped you build the business up? So you need to be ready for conflict, internal as well as external. And how do you actually minimise that? The other thing you need to look at is succession. With regards to succession, is tax. You know, unfortunately, there's a fair chance that if your business has been successful, there's money tied up in the business. You might have investments in other businesses. You could have money waiting to be extracted out in dividend. And there could be a capital gains element in terms of when you sell on. So again, you're not turning around and just doing that immediately, because if you do, you're probably going to be hit with a tax bill that you were not expecting and really, truly not wishing to pay. So again, you know, all your opportunities to make sure you minimise and be so tax efficient needs to be considered. And it might be that actually taking the family with you in this journey might not be the best option. You know, do you go for a trade sale? Do you go for a management buyout? Just to make you aware, and I don't have the dates on me at this moment in time, Scottish Enterprise over the next about 6 months are running about 4 or 5 employee ownership events. Both 2 of them, I believe, are online. The other 3 are face-to-face, and they range everything from, I think, Ayr to Glasgow, etc. So worthwhile looking if you are looking at employee ownership. And they've got the likes of Rani, for example, who's with a very successful employee ownership, there as one of the guest speakers. 2 seconds, just down. So, folks, I think I'm roughly about quarter past. So, yeah, that's an overview. So the next question then is, I need anecdotes from you. I need questions from you. I'm going to have a quick look down the list. Hello, Kate. How are you doing? I keep getting hounded by your team because I haven't been at PhysioFlex for at least 2 or 3 months. So yeah, I need to get that in order, get my back sorted. So Kate, thank you very much for coming in. Marlon, good to meet you again, who's a training and coaching. And Fiona Campbell from Bays and Ben's Holiday. I think I'm reading that right. Bays and Ben's Holidays, self-catering holiday company in Oban, or near Oban. Welcome to you all, and welcome to everybody else. There's about, I don't know, about 25 here or something in the call. So yeah, I'm looking for questions, thoughts, challenges, what your position is. If you're willing to share it, I appreciate. Succession and exit planning is never an easy thing to do. But really, yeah, either open your mics up, stick a question in the chat function, and we'll take it from there. Don't be shy. Gives me a chance to drink coffee.
Hi, Colin.
Hi,
I'm clicking
Marlon.
you again. Clicking you again, I'm afraid.
It's fine. I'm delighted to have you back on. It means I must have basically done something right for you to log back on again. Or then again, you maybe didn't know it was me who was doing it.
Oh, I did. My training and coaching companies, there's no way I could pass that on in the family because no one else has got those qualifications or a psychology background. However, I am starting another company. It should have started 2 years ago, but COVID hit, and it's based around the cruise ships that come into Greenock, because I live quite close to Greenock, and it's taking people on a tour around. It's called the Song of the Clyde, and it's taking people for a tour down the Clyde based on the history, the legends, the music of the area, which is a lot of locals don't know anything about the history between the slave trade and witchcraft, for example, which we were bases of. Lovely legends. And I think my kids, well, my daughter could possibly take that over eventually from me. I'm not quite sure how to do it, whether I start taking her along on trips so she gets an idea, because it's presenting. Got a bunch of American tourists, it's presenting to them. I know she could do the background, and certainly with her husband there, the background work would not be a problem.
I mean, the benefits, I mean, Marlon, of a business like that is that it is transferable. That's the first thing. You know, it's the reality is, you're right. The issue is with any professional business or any, you know, skilled, highly skilled trades business, passing them on is never easy, because it's not just about, you know, you just cannot pass them on to somebody who's not got that qualification and level of experience, because that becomes a danger. The business would never, most people would never sell to somebody like that. And secondly, most people basically would never try and buy a business without that skill set in the first place. You know, the reality is that, you know, I was fortunate enough, my father's business, don't get me wrong, we didn't really massively end up exiting anything, but, you know, I was in there from a pram, to be honest. I was in the business in a pram. So, you know, from the point I grew up, I knew nothing better. And therefore, I think that does influence you. And I think it does mean that as anybody, no matter what the age, the quicker you get them into the business and understanding it, even in a very part-time basic agenda, it gets them to know the intricacies of the business. I mean, like most businesses, you know, you've just said that very, very eloquently, the fact that, you know, you're going to go down, you're going to do the tours, explain the songs, explain the history, the culture, you know, all the intricacies that go along the Clyde. But, you know, that is years worth of knowledge and involvement and understanding. And, you know, you need to have a love of history and facts and everything else. So, you know, that just is not something, you don't pick that up academically. I think you need to pick that up over time and have an enjoyment of it. I mean, I'm a great believer that you don't go into business unless you enjoy it, because if you're only in business for money, and I use this phrase quite a lot, and we heard this actually yesterday with somebody who we're now dealing with, the minute the money doesn't go as well as planned, what are you getting up for in the morning? So therefore, you know, you need to find that somebody with the engagement of it. Now, I mean, the benefit of something like that is, Marlon, and I mean, I'm just going to make this up on the top of my head, there are two sides to the Clyde. So, you know, the first thing is that you maybe actually get your daughter to basically run one side and you run the other, and that gives you the opportunity to mentor her as you move down that list, or basically she takes over your patch and you make a new one. And then immediately then you've now got two journeys to do. I mean, probably numerous journeys to do. And therefore, again, then you're looking at, well, actually, the exit might be both to my daughter, and then potentially to even franchise or to bring somebody else on as a trainee. So, you know, the opportunities start to develop. But I think at the heart of anything, if it's family, they need to be involved in the business from as early age as possible to really, truly get to know the intricacies. I mean, we worked with a very large construction company quite recently, and the son is, I hate saying, aged of 22, 23, is the namesake in terms of who's going to take over his father who's the chair. Now, at this moment in time, obviously it will remain nameless. When having private meetings with some of the senior management team, the son isn't exactly what you would say shining with glory at this moment in time. You know, not truly getting to know the business. Now, he's young, he's got plenty of time. But, you know, that and maybe the same with all sons and daughters and businesses, that, you know, in the end of the day, he's going to have a tough time to basically just make his mark and show he knows that business inside out. So, you know, to me, that's where I would be, definitely. And you're right, consultancy businesses, really difficult to pass over, because unfortunately, they're only as good as the client list you've got. I think once you get further established and you've got the team, you've got the people around you, you've got the premises, you've got the branding, you've got the name, you've got a regular stream of good quality clients, yeah, there's definitely a sale in there somewhere. But no, hopefully that helped. I'm going to have a quick read of some of the Hi, Craig. Apologies for calling you Kate. But yeah, please pass on the message. Practice manager succession planning would be for myself to senior admin, taking more senior roles from Kate. Yeah, and I mean, Craig, this is another part of succession planning. I mean, we've been mainly talking about business exit so far. You know, to really turn around and start saying, okay, if that's the destination for you, it needs to also be the destination for Kate, which by the sounds of it, it is now. I know Kate reasonably well in a business capacity, and you know I can understand why she's doing that, and that's a plan from many a business owner to turn around and say, okay, how do we develop the business further? And I'm only guessing this, that Kate takes on a more strategic role, starts to maybe even develop the business further, where you really take on the operational, directional side of the business and making sure it's running very well. Again, to me, it's a big thing for Kate to do because, and I'm talking, when I say Kate, I'm talking in generic, any director or any person that's built up a business from scratch, because they're handing you over everything they've done and they know how they want it run. So it's about making sure that you appreciate where that person's coming from, what their expectations are of you, understanding over as long a period of time as possible of the direction they want to take the business in. But at the same time, you're there for fresh ideas as well. And therefore, to me, it's about you being part of that journey, challenging in the nicest possible way to make sure that actually there is new ideas, new directions, new support basically brought into the business to take it further forward than possibly even Kate ever imagined. I'm just going to go into Donald's question. Are there any template documents for folk to work their way through if starting to think this through? It's not something we've ever used. No point in lying to you, Donald. Sorry, you may hear a little dog coming in a second. He's just been out for his walk, as I said earlier. So, you know, not really. We've never used a set of templates, to be honest. What we usually do is work our way through each model individually. Each business individually, using the kind of model we just shown you in the very front screen. So to walk your way through each of those sections. That's about as close as we get to a model when we're working with succession planning and exit. Obviously, in a number of occasions, we are looking at it from a financial management point of view as well. So yeah, I hope that helped. As I say, I don't have a template that I can just quite easily. Yeah, Alistair is asking basically, how have you found the John Lewis model fits with family business? Yeah, I mean, John Lewis, basically employee ownership model, is probably one of the largest ever successful employee ownership models that's ever been in this country. We actually looked at that for a business about, as I say, about 2-3 months ago. We worked it through. The issue we faced in the small family business was that there wasn't the capital available from the employees to invest in the business in the first place, sadly. Given the type of business it was, the debt would have been possibly not acceptable. It would have brought too much debt into the business to actually turn around and make it viable going forward. The individuals didn't want to take on debt. So, you know, you didn't have the complete turn it over to the employees opportunity, because in the end, it was never going to be financially viable for the owner to do that. In an ideal world, they would have loved to, because that's the direction of travel they wish to go. But unfortunately, it proved not an option that was available. But I mean, if you go to somewhere like Rani, where they have seen, I would say, an employee model that has been highly successful. The employees themselves, as far as I'm aware, feel unbelievably attached to the business. On top of that, you know, they've used that model now through 2 years of COVID, and it's worked. And it's worked very, very well for them. And as I say, if you've got the chance, as I say, I can't give you the date, but Scottish Enterprise are actually running a live session with Granny close by, I think it's Glasgow, Radisson or something like that. But have a look at Scottish Enterprise's website. Sorry, Kate, how are you doing? Sorry, I've now got a little dog beside me making a noise with a ball. Apologies. Susie's asking, for a skilled specialist trade business with brand and customer list you want to sell, how long can that take and where do you start from? Not to a family. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 things here I'd be doing. One is actually working out the value. You know, what is the value? What are you actually selling here? To me, your trade customer list potentially could be worth more than the business itself. So, you know, coming from the accountancy point of view, and we were doing this actually just yesterday. So we're looking at basically breaking down the actual value of the business itself. Now, that is not as quick a process as you think. You know, just in that very one example, it's taken us probably a month to get from the point of where we took the raw data and basically where we got what I would say is a valuation for the company. Now, that was due to a number of conversations. You know, they were exploring a number of routes and a number of thoughts, trying to gather information together. So that allowed that. That was the first point. So that gave us an indication of basically what is the business worth. Now we do that by a number of methods, which is about, you know, looking at the asset base, looking at the brand value, looking at the intangibles in the business, looking at the customer database, and obviously a slight gut/market research feel of actually what size is the opportunity here, what size, what price is the market willing to pay for it. Next step, once we've got that in mind, what you're then looking at is what is the strategy of the owner. Now, what I mean by that is you're turning around and actually saying, I mean, this can be done in tandem, by the way, so it doesn't need to be done separately. But what is their aim? What's their reason for selling? Is it retirement? Is it to invest in another business? Is it to release funds for something else? You know, and it might just be a holiday. Because what that will drive is a bit of the timeline. So if you take one example from, as I say, about 3-4 months ago, there was no rush in that one because we started the process, let's say, back in initial conversations, probably back in April, got really into gear about June, had initial conversations with the employees, that failed. July, conversation with an employee, that failed. And by basically mid-September, beginning of September, it was basically put out to trade. Now, that company decided they didn't want to really shout about it. Now, my opinion was that through Facebook, through any form of social media, through websites, through MailChimp, through signs at the door, bluntly, I would have punted it from the rooftops, and that would have taken about a 4 to 6 week marketing strategy, but instead they wanted to go low key. But that individual actually was looking at a sale for the end/beginning of the next tax year. So basically you're talking a year in that example. It doesn't say it has to take that long. As I say, the business that we were dealing with just yesterday, from a succession planning point of view, I'll give you a very quick overview of it. They, as I say, we talked to them for about a month to get the price agreed. They are lucky in the fact that they have a potential buyer. They actually didn't really want to sell to that buyer. Their actual aim was to sell to somebody who's been working with them for a number of years. But that person has basically about to basically have their second child, not really in their strategy at this moment in time. So they are now looking for an external sale. And it's a skilled specialist business, not in the trade. Alistair, that's great. Thank you very much for putting in that Gerba camper vans. Yeah, there's many examples, to be honest, of good quality businesses going 100% owned. And yeah, sorry, I just noticed your last thing, SE supported. Yeah, it's a big thing at the moment. Susie, I hope that helped. It is a piece of string. It's big getting it right. But as I say, the key thing is making sure it's right for the seller as well. Because, you know, that individual wants to retire in March. But, you know, let's just say I was selling my business. It wouldn't be a retiral sale. I'm getting closer to it, but it's still a wee bit away. But yeah, you know, it wouldn't be an actual true retiral sale if I was going to be selling mine. Guys, we have tons of time. Very happy to just keep the questions coming in. Apologies if you hear a dog panting in the background. He's had a third walk today and he's knackered. And also he's wet, and I'll be honest, he smells as well after the rain. So yeah, I mean, if we, I'll bring in a couple of other things as you think up some more questions. Donald, sorry, I'll just pick up Donald's point. Are the slides available? I missed them. Delighted to, if Katie, could you just nick back in the call for 2 seconds, if that's possible?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello. Hi. If I email you the slides, are you okay to distribute them to those in the call?
Yeah, you could do that, or you can link it in the chat if that works.
Can I just literally, I must admit, even though I've been using this for a long while, I've never actually linked in. So literally just put the slides. Can you just copy and paste them in the chat?
If you want to send me the slides, I can put them in, or I can just send them out after.
It's fine, folks. So what I'll do is I'll stop sharing for a second, and I'll literally just send them on to you if that's okay.
Yeah, do you want me just to put my email in the chat for you?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I don't have it. That's great, and I'll get into you as soon as I've got that.
There you go, that's it there.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I just need to close these down. Everyone, accept. I'm just going to make sure this goes, folks, just so you can get it. Katie, that's it on its way to you.
Perfect, that's fine. I'll try and share it, and if not, I can send it out in the chat. But I'll hopefully I can just pop it in the chat for you.
Yeah, Donald, there wasn't that many slides, to be honest. It was never an aim to have many slides, but there's a few tips and bits, and the actual intro slide is probably the kind of main one we would use.
Okay.
Yeah, so all I was going to start saying was, a lot of the time we're having conversations with clients 1, 2, 3 years before they really start thinking about this. I mean, some companies will be looking at, they maybe decide they want to, if they're unbelievably fortunate enough to retire at 55, they want to retire at 59. So therefore, they start having that conversation early, so that basically they really start to process not just the immediate successor, but actually who's going to support that successor. The reality is, in many family businesses, that the person who maybe the key manager, the key successor, the key supervisor is not going to be the person that takes over the business. Now, I'm afraid they probably appreciate that. But then you start turning around and asking, and we've seen this quite a lot recently, is actually maybe that's not the way to go around it. So what we've started to see even more, especially as maybe people are realising that people can shift quite quickly, is a change of share ownership as well. So you've got a business which is doing very well, been quite successful. The owner, or maybe a couple of owners, own 100% of the shares. And what they therefore start to do is, as they grow, they need to bring in talent. Now, that could be talent from bringing it up throughout the business, or it could be buying in talent. And to buy in that talent, they basically look at buying in people not just with a salary, but with shareholding in the company itself. Now, it could be quite a small shareholding to start with, or it could be a slightly larger one. It could be different types of shareholdings. But in principle, what they're starting to do is make a little route which looks like an exit. So therefore, they've started to bring in a team, which means they can start to exit. Now, whether that exit is through being slightly less involved in the operational business, that exit slightly and maybe involved more in the strategic decision making. They might want to go and showcase their operations around the world, whatever it may be, but they slowly start to exit. And over time, the shareholdings of the others increase as they sell off. And before you know it, what you've got is pretty much a business, in a way, becoming employee owned, but possibly only at a senior level. It's more a management buyout. And that's an opportunity for people as well. That takes time. And again, it's back to the individual who has maybe spent their life building up a business and now start to give it away slightly. That's a big, big thing to do. So to me, you know, there are many, many ways of doing it. The biggest message you can take out of this today is that plan succession early as you can physically possibly do. Get people who may be interested in that role into doing some of that role as soon as possible. You know, to me, get people to actually know the business from the inside out. You know, if you've started a business or an organisation or whatever it may be, you've been the one that physically has done every single job that possibly is going. You know every single intricacy of basically what's taken place. You remember putting that machine in the corner in when you first started and taking on your first employee. So, you know, that's a big thing to put on somebody else's shoulders. So to me, definitely start as early as possible to work that process through and do a backup plans. So listen, I'm looking for more questions. It's currently only 8 minutes past 2. Which basically means I've got technically about 22 minutes left, or 20 minutes left, because basically Katie will kick me out after then. So think of your own business. What's your plans? Now, I don't need to know detail, but let us know what your plans are and how basically we can maybe look at it and see, okay, what would that mean to you?
Colin, I've not received the email.
Have you not?
No.
It's not good.
I've been refreshing this whole time, but
it's been sent. It is 5 meg.
Yeah. I'll keep refreshing just now. Yeah, I'll keep refreshing. It could be me.
Sorry about
that. If it does arrive after the call, I can just, if people just want to leave a note who wants it, and then I can send it.
Sorry, folks. Yeah, Kate, it's an area we've looked at a number of businesses in the past. Or sorry, Craig, I don't now know who's talking, whether it's Craig or Kate, but never mind, either or. It can be an unbelievably good way to develop, not necessarily succession planning, but develop growth. It gives the opportunity for the business, because, you know, let me take a step back. The issue with small business, and when I say small, I could be talking ending up to £1 million turnover. You know, I'm not talking that small a business. The problem is there's a point where the owner literally cannot manage everything anymore. They realise that maybe as the size of business they are, yeah, Kate, just drop your email in and Katie will send them across to you. If not, I'll soon send them out to you. I've got your email somewhere. So first thing, the key thing about franchising, whenever we've worked with it, is making sure the contract's correct, and that's where you invest the time. So basically, what does that contract look like? Now, I'm fortunate enough, and you know, within reason, I know your business. What you've got is an unbelievably successful trading history. You've got a very, very good team. But at some point in time, that team may wish to, as you say, you know, they may wish to look for other adventures, which basically will benefit them more, let's say. And having that franchise opportunity doesn't just retain that experience, but grows your opportunity, gives you an opportunity to grow the business. They already work in the kind of frame of mind you're in. They are already passionate about what they do. And therefore, they already know the kind of vision that you've got for you. So therefore, on top of that, as I say, that's the first stage. What does that model look like? And start basically realising that what you're needing to write up is the processes that go with it. How you actually develop what you're going to sell to that franchisee. What do you actually have copyright over? What do you actually own? And what does that financial model look like? Now, from there, the contract becomes key, and that's not a low-cost thing to do. There is, and I'm very rarely on a business gateway call I would turn around and say that, you know, we would name organisations, but the likes of Harper McLeod have a fantastic franchising lawyer, like the legal team, basically, and probably one of the best franchising experts in the country. I'm not saying they're the cheapest, and I'm not saying they're the only one, but at the same time, you need that contract really sewn up. And I'll give you an indication of why, and this has gone back a number of years. We were fortunate enough through Business Gateway Glasgow. Glasgow basically used to have a dealing with Harper McLeod. Harper McLeod basically would then support franchise contracts within the Business Gateway network if you asked them nicely. And we had a contract for a very large takeaway outlet business, sit-in takeaway, kind of large mall type business. They'd already sold 7 in Scotland, numerous in England. They were based out of Australia. And this was the 8th one getting purchased in Scotland. And what happened was, we eventually, this contract came in, 100 and odd pages long. We sent it to Harper McLeod, and Harper McLeod informed us that the contract was made up of partial Australian, partial English, and some Scottish law. The contract was not worth the paper it was written on. Now, this was a £300,000 franchise. And that's how good the paperwork was. So that's the first thing. Get that contract right, because that's what you're going to be driven by. Second thing is test it. So basically turn around and get an individual who's willing to, a lesser franchise fee, test the project, the whole process for you. And basically make sure it works before you start selling it out to other people. And then from there, it's about making sure British Franchise Association is a very, very good support network, although it is not that cheap to basically join. But then from there, it's about making sure the model is correct, that will basically both make sure you're recompensed, you basically make a living out of it, and in turn, the person is making a living out of it. You know, so franchising to me is a fantastic model. And I mean, I hate saying it does build your business. It gives you a much greater opportunity to sell in the future when you've got that opportunity there in front of you. I mean, we've been working with a number of franchises over the last year or two, and in the end, doing very, very well out of it. Kevin, I've just seen your little query. Minority shareholder who runs business 100%, how best to exit? Right. The question becomes is, are you in very good terms with the other shareholder? That is a big question to begin with. The reason being is that, sorry, the wee beepings are coming up through. That's good. We have been in situations, Kevin, the reason why I'm asking is where we've actually had 50-50 shareholdings, or 49-51 shareholdings, and unfortunately the communication, let's say, with the other party has basically went down into a ditch somewhere along the lines. The question near enough becomes is, are you getting recompensed? And I don't need an answer for this, you know, this is a generic conversation. Are you getting recompensed for the 100% effort you're putting in? And therefore, I would be turning around if you're not and saying, if this does exit, how do you get supported? How do you see some benefit from that, apart from just your minority shareholding? Now, there's 2 or 3 ways you could look at this from a longer term point of view. Can you buy further into the business, improve it even further, and sell on in the future for both of you? And, you know, if you're in good terms with that individual, I'll be having the open conversation. If you, for example, were thinking, well, actually, I'm going to end up losing not just my small shareholding and my dividends I get every year, you're actually going to end up losing your job as well. The reality is I'll be turning around and saying, okay, I've built this business up for 100%. How do I be talking to basically the owner to turn around and say, okay, if we can get a good sale price for this business, what's my recompense for this? How do I get something back out of this business? Now, I don't think that's a difficult question to ask. The person, if you're in good terms with them, will appreciate what you've done for them. And, you know, you're going to basically make a very, very good return for them. And therefore, on that basis, you should be recompensed for that. Apart from that, it's no different from any other. I'm afraid, you know, if I was turning around and saying, it's no different from any other succession planning, sale, exit, that you end up in a situation that says you just move into the exact same planning circle that basically I showed you right back at the beginning. Alistair's come up with some good stuff. One well-known Scottish investor who does workshops for us in selling and buying businesses stresses one word: values. Values are not in the balance sheet, but values add value, as shown time after time. Yeah. It's never an easy one in terms of value. The problem is that if you take the whole of the tech sector during the 1990s, 1980s into basically the 2000s, if you even take, I don't know, Facebook today, let's be honest, and apologies, I don't follow Facebook that much in terms of its financial situation, but I've got a funny feeling it's still not making money. And most of the tech companies don't. What they're looking at is the value in it, the ability to cookie cut it, the ability to replicate it, the ability to what's going to come in future revenues. So therefore you are buying value. That's what the value that's been built into the share price to start with. For your average business, the true thing for me is the brand, the name, the connections. Now, what you have to watch with values in that situation is that if you are the business, in other words, if Colin McNally Limited is up for sale and people appreciate that 90% of the work is done by Colin McNally, what am I selling? Because I'm planning to retire. I'm not going to be in the business anymore. And 90% of the business is me. So one of the first things you need to do as an owner is move yourself out of that business. And I don't mean fully, but basically make sure it can run without you and actually have something to sell. The minute you've got to that point, your value can actually basically increase. Because it's no longer 90% of Colin McNally that you're selling. It is basically 100% of a business which does value with a guiding hand from whoever that owner may be. And now you've got something you can sell. And that's very, very difficult. I actually wish, Alistair, I had time to actually go and listen to that workshop earlier, and hopefully I'll go pick it up again. I'm afraid next week, and Katie, I do apologise, I'm going to be spending a bit of time going back over some of the recordings because there's been some excellent topics over the last 4 days, and there'll be more tomorrow, I believe. So yeah, there's my thoughts on values.